Adobe Animate supports several types of animation: motion tweens, classic tweens, inverse kinematics poses, shape tweens, and frame-by-frame animation. We're going to look at motion tweens, classic tweens, and shape tweens. Let's start with motion tweens. Motion tweens are used to create animation movements within Animate. Motion tween animation is created by specifying different values for an object property between a first and a last frame. So we can look at properties like position, size, color, effects, filters, and rotation. So let's go ahead and create a motion tween. There are several different methods of creating a motion tween animation. They all will kind of blend together, and you'll get the method after you feel more comfortable. So I have a layer with a frame. What I'm going to do is create my graphic. That's how I'm going to start with this example. So I'm going to use the oval tool to create a circle. We'll use basic circles. And remember that when I hold the shift key down, I will be able to create a perfect circle. Okay, so I have my circle on my stage. It also is on frame 1. So what I need to do now, a couple different methods here. So I can right click up here on a frame and create a motion tween. I can have my graphic selected, go up to the insert menu and create a motion tween, and you can notice that each one of those tweens are also available here. So whichever method we choose to do, we'll just go right here on the timeline, create motion tween. Couple of things are going to happen now. So I cannot create a motion tween without a symbol. So it's going to automatically create this shape that I've made into a symbol. So that's what this box is asking. Do you want to convert this to a symbol so I can do this motion tween? I'll click OK. By default, it's just going to be titled Symbol 1, and I can rename this so that you are more descriptive in your elements of your animation. If you notice what happened here up in the timeline, I now have 24 frames, and that's because my frame rate right here is set to 24 frames per second FPS. So by default, it's going to give me 1 second worth of an animation. And you notice there's some coloring that happens here as well. So like I mentioned, a motion tween works on the properties. And so this is a very simple way to animate. So I just need to navigate to a specific frame within my span here, click my object with my selection tool, making sure I have that selection tool be the active tool, and I just click and drag. The minute I drag, my path is extended out. This is my animation path. And I also get a keyframe here. Notice it's a diamond. That's the kind of keyframe I'll get in a motion tween. Again, move to the very last frame here, select my object, and move it. So now if I scrub, you can see that I have created an animation. If I press my Enter or Return key, you can see how that animation will go. Now, like I mentioned, this is a path, so I actually can do some fun things with the path itself. If you're familiar with vector, specifically pen tool, and doing some edits, we can do that with this path. These are as though they're individual anchor points on a path. So I can go and actually select them and do more tweaking. But here you go. This is a bit more rounded. So there is an example of a motion tween. I'm going to name this motion tween so we know which one this is. Let's move on and create the classic tween. So I am going to create a new folder in my timeline, and I'll name this. Now I do want to note that when I type in the title here, I've put a space bar, and Animate does not like that. Special characters are not permitted in layer names. So by clicking OK, Animate will just conform this to the specific requirements. In that case, it puts an underscore where my space was. So what I'm going to do, making sure that this layer is turned off. Okay, so motion tween layer is turned off. I'm not going to be distracted by that. So let's go ahead and create another circle. So navigating to my oval tool, this time I'm going to use green holding down Shift to make sure that I draw a perfect circle. So in order for a classic tween to be functional, to work, I have to have symbols. Okay, so I have to convert this graphic right now into a symbol. So I'm going to just right click, and I know that it is not visible, but at the very bottom is convert to symbol. For the classic tween, I do want to make sure I'm selecting a graphic symbol. Click OK. It lives now in the library, titled Symbol 2, and I have an instance on my stage. As you can see, I'm going to replicate kind of what I have with the motion tween. Move my playback head to that specific spot in the timeline, insert keyframe, either by right-clicking or go under the Insert menu, and Timeline, and Keyframe. And now I need to relocate. So I have my beginning position, and I need to identify where my second position or any of the attributes I want to have at that second location. Let's add a last and third keyframe here at the very end. Okay, so now when I scrub, you can see the different locations. There are 3, but there's no tweening occurring. Nothing is transitioning smoothly between those attributes. So we're going to right click and create a classic tween. And you can either right click or go under the Insert menu and choose Create Classic Tween. When the tween is successful, the timeline will turn purple with the arrow solid, indicating it was successful as a tween. The last tween we want to look at is a shape tween, and shape tweens tween shapes. Okay, so we have to have vector shapes at each frame in the timeline. So let's go ahead and create a third layer here in our timeline, and we'll title it shape underscore tween. And we'll turn off the other layers so they're not distracting. So on my shape tween layer, making sure the first frame is selected, we're going to again create another object, and this time we have to make sure it's a vector shape. So I'm going to utilize the oval to make a circle, and holding Shift down to constrain the proportions. So I have a keyframe on frame 1 of my shape tween layer. I'm going to move to my very last frame there, frame 24, and we're going to insert a keyframe. We can either insert a filled keyframe that will duplicate the content, or insert a blank keyframe if we want to have new content. So I inserted a blank, and I'm going to just draw a smaller. Now this is where we can do a shape tween between different types of shapes. We can really change the attributes there. So first keyframe to last keyframe. Again, no tweening is occurring until I create the shape tween. Again, either right clicking or go to the Insert menu, Create Shape Tween. When it is successful, the timeline will turn orange with a solid arrow indicating that shape tween is effective. Let's turn on the other layers here, and you can see now the differences between a motion tween, a classic tween, and a shape tween. They all have their set parameters that need to be followed in order for them to be successful. After we have tweens created, we can go ahead and play with transformations. So we can apply the principles of animation utilizing squish and squash by simply doing a transformation to make it appear as though that circle squashes. We can look at things appearing to be in more of a distance by creating a smaller shape. So they go from large to small. So all of the editing that can be done on keyframes, so just making sure that you have a keyframe selected, you have the object on that keyframe selected, and remember each animation needs to be on its own layer. So don't double up and put multiple things on one layer. You have to put everything on its own layer to make editing and tweening successful.